Okay, so I've been having some fun today with 3D printed mouthpieces. Why? Well, these are kind of like a new player on the market. They've been around for maybe the last year or so, but I wanted to find out if 3D printed mouthpieces were a good option and how they compared with the normal sort of metal mouthpieces that I'm playing. So I've got mouthpieces from SYOS, Shape Your Own Sound, and from Gary Sugal as well. And I'm going to give them a test through today, talk about what you can expect with a 3D printed mouthpiece, and find out whether this is a good option for you to consider for your next mouthpiece. So stick around, I think it's going to be quite interesting. Okay, as always, if you're new here, don't forget to click subscribe, hit that notification thing too so you don't miss out on new videos. Right, let's dig in. G'day, it's Nigel here from Sax School. Hey, thanks for joining me for another one of these videos. So in amongst our Sax School community, I know loads of my students, we've got thousands of students in there now, loads of them are asking about mouthpieces and talking about SYOS mouthpieces in particular, because they're one of the common, popular 3D printed mouthpieces, but there's other players as well, and students are asking me how they compare and which ones to consider. So I was really excited when Gary Sugal reached out to me and sent me over a whole range of mouthpieces to check out, and SYOS sent me over a couple to test out as well. So that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. Why 3D printed mouthpieces are even a thing, what 3D printed means, what to expect when you try a 3D printed mouthpiece because they're not like other normal mouthpieces, and most importantly find out how they sound. So the models that I'm testing today, SYOS have sent me over the Tivon Pennicott model, which is kind of interesting actually, and also the Chad LB model, one of their most popular ones. In fact, both of these are their really popular models. They're both awesome players, those guys, so why wouldn't you want to sound like them, right? And I've got both of these in a size 8 tip opening. Now Gary Sugal sent me a whole bunch of mouthpieces, but the ones that I'm going to focus on today are the KW1 Turbo, which I guess is like their Kirk Whalum model, and the MB1 Turbo, which I guess again is their Michael Brecker model. Now why I think this discussion is important is because mouthpieces can be super expensive. So I'm a Theo 1A artist and I play his pieces, and they're wonderful, but they can be really expensive. In fact, you know, a metal Durga like this in England is about more than £600 or like $800 US. It's an expensive piece of equipment. In comparison, a 3D printed mouthpiece in the UK, less than £200 or maybe $250 US. So they're a lot less expensive. But are they as good, or are they good enough? That's really the question. So what is 3D printing? Well, whereas for the last number of years, mouthpieces like my Theo 1A pieces or Jody Jazz or any of the other main brands, they're manufactured from a block of brass or a block of hard rubber, and then they're machined down to this shape. Whereas with 3D printing, what happens is the actual mouthpiece is built up in layers using plastic filament or ABS. Now 3D printing has been around for a little while, and actually, you know, I'm kind of geeky. I have a 3D printer and I tinker around making stuff around my studio like ocarinas and well, I made this stand for my mouthpieces you might have seen in another video. Now of course my 3D printer at home here is a bit simpler than what these mouthpieces will be made on, but the process is exactly the same. And because they can be printed on demand, it means you can customize them. And in fact, that's one of the really cool things that SYOS do when you go to their website, that you can say what color, what aspect you want, like what features you want of your mouthpiece. And you can mix and match and even put fancy little finishes and stuff on the outside. It's pretty cool. Gary Sugal doesn't do the same customizing, but you can choose the colors. But to be honest with you, what's most important about the mouthpiece is the internal shape, and that's really what gives it its sound. And we'll hear that in just a minute. Now, the most important question that I had about 3D printed mouthpieces is what's it actually going to feel like and how's it going to perform? Because, like I said at the very start, they aren't the same as regular type mouthpieces. So first of all, the SYOS mouthpieces. Well, let's have a look at how they turned out. So when you get a SYOS mouthpiece, it comes in a little bag, and my mouthpiece actually came with, each mouthpiece came with two different ligatures. So there's the mouthpiece. I've got a little mouthpiece cap that would go over and protect the end of the mouthpiece. And I've also got two different ligatures. And the ligature system is dead simple. It literally just slides on. And actually that system works really, really well. So I've got a blue one and a yellow. Now these are samples that they've sent me to make the video with. And I'm not sure, to be honest with you, if you buy one, if you do get two different ligatures, but it's kind of cool that you get different colors. And here are the two ligatures that I got with the Tiv and Pennicott model. So we've got a white ligature, and I got this really funky looking blue one, which has got like waves or something on the top, which I think looks really cool. Now the external shape of the SYOS mouthpieces feels very familiar to me. In fact, have a look at this. This is a Selma D. Almost, they look on the outside very, very similar. In fact, as does it compared to a Van Doren or even a Theo 1A hard rubber mouthpiece. So they're all very same in terms of external dimensions, and that means when you stick it in your mouth it feels quite familiar. However, one of the things that's a real issue with 3D printed mouthpieces, for me at the start at least, is the fact that a reed does not seal on the mouthpiece. So lots of you will be familiar with the whole idea of doing a pop test on the mouthpiece, where you put your reed on and then you put it against your hand and you suck the air out to see if it pops. A pop means that the mouthpiece and the reed are making a really good seal together. You just can't do it with a 3D printed mouthpiece. Let's try it with my Theo 1A Durga. There you go, pop. Now, when I first got the mouthpiece and I tried that, I thought, hang about, is it broken? Is it something wrong with it? But you know, what I realized is that every 3D printed mouthpiece doesn't seal. And the reason is quite simple. Because I mentioned before that it's built up in layers, there are actually fine ridges along the facing here. So it's never going to seal. But what's important is that it didn't actually affect the performance of the mouthpiece, and I'll show you that in a second. The overall finish though on these SYOS mouthpieces is fantastic. Everything's really smooth and really clean and really well presented. So the way it came to me, both of these, I mean, they look fantastic. They look like really nice professional pieces. Even got a little SYOS tooth guard on there, which is cool. Now moving on to the Gary Sugal pieces. Well, I actually had a good chat with Gary. He's been around for a long time. Gary's been making mouthpieces since the 80s. He's made, in fact, he told me he's made like 19,000 mouthpieces over the years, and he has manufactured pieces for people like Joe Bergonzi, Michael Brecker, Kirk Whalum, and in fact most of his mouthpieces that I've always come across in the past have been CNC machined mouthpieces like the Theo 1A. So what Gary has done is recreated the shape of his already proven CNC mouthpieces, his metal mouthpieces, in a 3D format. So what we get then is a mouthpiece that actually looks more like a metal mouthpiece. It looks more of that kind of format as opposed to the sort of standard, you know, hard rubber or plastic mouthpiece. It's a different shape entirely. And when I first started playing these, they felt kind of strange to me because when you pick them up, it feels all light. And when you stick it in your mouth, it's really narrow like a metal mouthpiece. The other thing I found is that the curvature here is quite flat. In fact, it reminds me of a Berg Larsen or a Dukoff mouthpiece. Very, very flat here. So it felt kind of awkward in my mouth at the start, but that's because I'm not used to playing Gary's pieces. But after a few minutes of playing, it really did start to feel comfortable. Now, just like with the SYOS pieces, you can't get a seal on the facings here. But like I said before, it doesn't actually affect the performance. These mouthpieces play really, really well. Now Gary uses this rail system for the ligature, and he also sent me through one of his ligatures. I have a feeling that from his mouthpieces, if you're purchasing these, you need to purchase the ligature separately. So that's what it looks like, and it just slides on the bottom of the mouthpiece like that. Pretty cool system. If I'm honest, maybe I'm just old school, I found it quite hard to use actually, because the ligature can be placed anywhere along that facing, and it does make a big difference to the way the reed vibrates. Some of you may like this. Personally, I found it quite fiddly, and I didn't really enjoy using the ligature, but it does look really nice, and it's nice to have it locked onto the mouthpiece like that. Now, Gary really knows his stuff. He's a saxophone player, but he's also got a background in jewelry manufacture, so he knows how to do fine detail. And these models that he sent me are actually prototypes, so they're a little bit rough around the edges, but he's telling me that The ones that he's producing now from his website are all lovely, finished off as you'd imagine they would be, coming from a guy who knows his stuff. So we've got a brown piece and a yellow piece, but he's also sent me a couple of different white pieces, and he was quite excited about these carbon fiber pieces as well. So this is printed in carbon fiber. Pretty durable stuff. Now I'm going to play through these and show you what they sound like. But first, tell me in a comment, have you played a 3D printed mouthpiece? Which one do you play and what's your impression of them? I'd love to know. Although I was skeptical when I first couldn't get that seal between the reed and the mouthpiece, when I stuck these mouthpieces, all of them, on my saxophone, I was really surprised by the sound of them. They've all got very different sounds, I have to say, but the response on all of them is really, really great. So with the Gary Sugal pieces, this is the Michael Brecker 1 Turbo, MB1 Turbo, and it's got a really bright, full sound, but the Altissimo is really, really good. So the Altissimo just pops out, and the overtones also work really, really well. I think that, I don't know what it is about the shape of it, but it gives you a lot of confidence with those Altissimo notes. And I think for less experienced players, that'll be a real bonus actually. Overall though, the response isn't quite the same as you get from metal mouthpiece or hard rubber. That's, you know, the traditionally manufactured one. So I need to put a little bit more air through, but the sound is great. And I think the recorded sound is good too. The SYOS mouthpieces are great for the Altissimo as well. Same as with the Sugal. So the Altissimo is popping out really clearly. The low notes are punchy. It's quite bright though. This is the Chad LB model, and it just goes to show how every player sounds different, right? So for me, the Chad LB mouthpieces are a bit brighter than what I would normally play on, but it's certainly got plenty of bite. You might be thinking, I'm doing a funk gig, I need a metal mouthpiece, but actually something like this might do the trick for you. So the darkest mouthpiece of all these that I've been testing is the KW1 Turbo from Gary Sugal. I'm guessing it's a Kirk Whalen model. And this is a really big open mouthpiece, but it's got a lovely warm sound to it. But even with this, the Altissimo pops out really well too. Okay, enough chit chat. Let's have a listen to how they sound. So I've got an arrangement here where I'm playing all the backing parts with 3D printed mouthpieces, except for my Barry sax, which has got a normal metal mouthpiece. And then I'm using all four of the pieces to play the melody and to do some soloing as well, so you can hear them individually. Have a listen and let me know in a comment which one you think sounds best to you. So what do you think about that? Do you like the sound of those pieces? Let me know in a comment which one sounds best to you. I definitely think 3D printed mouthpieces are going to be here for a long time. They're here to stay, and that's something you should definitely consider if you're looking for a mouthpiece upgrade, particularly if you haven't quite got the budget to go for those really high-end mouthpieces by a maker like Theo 1A. Theo's pieces are brilliant, and it's definitely something to aspire to, but for a half or a third of the money, you can try out something different in a 3D printed mouthpiece from any of these brands or any of the other brands that are producing 3D printed mouthpieces. And you might be surprised. I think they sound fantastic. And one thing that's come out of this for me is that, you don't need to be worried about whether a 3D printed mouthpiece is going to be good enough, because it absolutely is. So let me know in a comment if that was helpful to you. And also, if you're ready to really move your playing ahead, then come along and see what we're doing at Sax School. We've got thousands of members who are learning with Sax School every single day. And as a member yourself, you get access to a huge library of lessons, but even more importantly, particularly at the moment with all the lockdown and separation that we're having to deal with, you, as a Sax School member, you're part of this huge worldwide community of learners, thousands of learners from all around the world. You can connect with them, get support from them, make music together, get encouragement. Honestly, it's such a great thing to be a part of a bunch of like-minded people. So that's available in Sax School, and actually as I'm filming this right now, there's a 14-day trial, so that means you can stick your toe in the water and see if it's right for you. So you can find out about that at mcgillmusic.com, and I hope you will, because I'd love to see you in there and help you along with my team of tutors to help you make great progress in your sax. Hey, thanks for watching. Keep practicing hard. I'll catch you next time.